Let's have the real quick homelessness update.
All right, and there should be a slide that's coming up. Mayor and Council Rodney Gonzalez. I'm Assistant City Manager for Economic Opportunity and Affordability. And with me today is Christy Samilpa. Christy has been working along, and Stephanie Hayden, Director for Health and Human Services. Christy is handing out the update that was provided to Council yesterday with regard to homelessness initiatives, as well as the announcement of the hiring of the Homeless Strategy Officer. Christy has also been working side by side with Veronica Persenio since March in an interim capacity. At yesterday's budget presentation, the City Manager announced the hiring of Lori Pompeo Harris as the Homeless Strategy Officer, in addition to the historic funding allocation that is proposed for homelessness initiatives in next year's budget. We followed up with a memo to talk about not just those two items, but several different initiatives that are underway currently. And this morning's briefing is to quickly go over those initiatives. If you'll go to the next slide. Okay. So starting with Homeless Strategy Officer update, as I mentioned, Lori Pompeo Harris was hired. Her start date is September 9th. Lori comes from Orlando, where she is the Senior Advisor to the Mayor on Homeless Initiatives, and we are excited to have Lori come to the City of Austin. For the next few months, there will be a transition and onboarding priority to ensure that when Lori gets here and when she does the work associated with the office, that she is successful, so that way we can all be successful. I want to also reiterate that it's not just Lori, but you've got a whole team of city employees from multiple departments that are focused on homelessness, ranging from myself and Assistant City Manager Chris Shorter to Stephanie Hayden, other department directors in housing, public works, parks, police department, so on and so forth. There are a number of staff that are dedicated towards homelessness initiatives. Looking at priorities, we will be focusing on priorities that create housing. As was pointed out by the mayor recently, we lack housing for individuals experiencing homelessness who are unsheltered. And so every initiative that comes through that we're asked to look at it, what we want to do is we want to focus on whether or not that gets a person housed, because ultimately that's what is needed, is housing for those who are unsheltered. And so you're seeing us come forward with affordable housing programs. You're seeing us come forward with shelters. You're seeing us focus completely on housing, not in disregard for other things that we're currently working on, because there are so many other issues associated with homelessness. But ultimately, we need housing for those individuals who are unsheltered. Speaking of housing, there are a couple of new initiatives that you are going to be considering on Thursday's agenda. The first is the South Austin Housing Center. That will be up to a 100-bed facility that Council recently approved us moving forward on June. We are currently in the property acquisition phase, as well as developing the RFP associated with that housing center. We anticipate being operational by the second quarter of 2020 when it comes to the housing center. Also on August 8th, you're going to see two funding requests for the Salvation Army. The first is for the 252-bed Rathgaber Center, which is complete in terms of construction. However, they do need some funding in order to begin operations. And so we are requesting of Council a one-time funding allocation of $1 million. We're also doing as much as possible to get the word out to the community that the Salvation Army needs more than $1 million. They need, I think it's in terms of $5 million. The DAA, I believe, is going to come forward with their foundation for some funding to the Rathgaber Center, but we're talking at every corner, if you will, to inform the community that the Rathgaber Center needs funding. Additionally, with the downtown center operated by the Salvation Army, you're going to see a council request for $500,000 to expand case management services in that facility. On the August 8th agenda, under the Affordable Housing Corporation, you will see several loan projects to bring forward affordable housing projects. There are going to be 722 affordable housing units. I believe 300 plus of those are going to be supportive housing units, and another 50 continuum of care. So those are very important projects for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And then with regard to funding and work development plan, we have targeted, as the city manager mentioned yesterday, a historic level of funding with regard to homelessness initiatives. And so what we're going to be doing, of course, is putting together the work plan associated with that funding, so that way come October 1st, if all of that is approved, that we are ready to get started to implement that funding. Mayor and Council, so that is the bulk of our presentation. It follows the memo that was provided to you yesterday that's in front of you as well.
Well, and I want to say I really appreciate the work that was done in the budget to really focus on this. I think the community and the council have been saying this is the #1 priority. I think we have a budget that reflects that, so thank you for that. Excited to have the new person coming on to kind of help make sure that everybody is focused in the community-wide on an actionable plan going forward. We did have that Resolution 184 that asked for some more immediate responses on some things that are not addressed in this. I just want to confirm that within the next week or two, we should still anticipate hearing back your immediate and shorter-term thoughts on the things that were listed in that first resolve clause that went to reasonable time and place, both restrictions and allowances for people to be. There was an issue with respect to storage. There was an issue with respect to safe parking. And I just want to make sure that we're still going to get something back from you within the next week or two on those issues.
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to confirm that both we are continuing to work on that resolution, and the purpose of having updates like this is to know that this is a comprehensive body of work that's going to be needed to address our homelessness issues in the city. With regards to how do we get better information around what are specific areas, we will not be identifying specific places, but we will be talking about the criteria and the best practices that we're hearing from across the country about what makes a place safer to have some of those situations where people experiencing homelessness could be placed. And so we're going to be continuing to have this dialogue with the council, and yes, you will be getting further updates as we move forward this month.
Okay, great. Anything else on the conversation on this before we move on? Kathy?
Oh, just a couple of quick questions, but first of all, thank you. This is super useful, and thank you for all your work in so many avenues, and in particular for really amplifying the need at the Salvation Army, which is such a great opportunity. I'm not sure if you have this information right now, but I believe, City Manager, you gave a total for the number of shelter beds in yesterday's presentation, and if you have that information and are able to tell us where those are, I think that's often a frequent question or comment in the public about the number of shelter beds we've created, and I would love to better understand that total and the individual numbers.
Absolutely. We don't have that information with us, but we can certainly send it following the work session. Total of 822 beds currently, plus the new beds being developed by the Rathgaber Center as well as the Housing Center in South Austin. And so we've got a chart that we can certainly send to council for your use. And it adds to the chart that was presented in June 6th, or on June 6th in terms of work session presentation.
That would be really helpful. Thank you. And I know, Director Hayden, my office and your office have been in communication about the day services that are at the Arch and the plan. But again, that's another question that I get asked both by guests at the Arch, but also by members of the community. And I know you have a plan and are working hard on making sure that those services that are currently offered at the Arch will be offered at other social service organizations for individuals who are as the Arch transitions to that housing-focused shelter where the day services are available for guests at the Arch only. I know you've made provisions, but if you would just address that briefly.
Stephanie Hayden, Director of Austin Public Health. As far as the front steps is going along, things are transitioning quite well. The lottery system does end next week, and so basically that kind of starts the process of moving us to a place of 100% case management. As far as the Day Resource Center operations, what we have begun is having conversations with other partners in the immediate downtown area as well as across the city that are looking at their current service delivery and are willing to increase that service delivery and provide more of it. So, for example, if they're providing breakfast, they're willing to expand the hours that they are providing breakfast and allow that additional time for folks to be there. We have partners that have stepped up that have said that they are willing to provide showers, and so showers, kind of computer access, those things. We're working on the mail logistics, and as a part of this budget, if approved, some of the facility renovations will also help because it will include a door that will allow folks to go straight into the clinic. So we're looking at all of those different things just to really help the facility itself with the flow of people that way may continue to come there for clinic services.
Great.
So we are looking at this holistically, and the plan is to have this in place October 1st. We are in the process of developing a memo that will communicate this, and we also have a communication strategy that's getting the word out from an outreach perspective, but then also to the service providers as well and the clients.
Thank you, Director Hayden. And as part of that, the laundry services and the mail services, you're also actively
Yes.
working on a plan for those as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And storage, as
storage
the
as a
mayor
part of it.
mentioned, but in
Yes.
terms of the other things that are currently offered at the Arch. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much for all your work.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ann.
Yes, and thank you all for all your work. There's plenty to talk about, and I won't go into all the details here, or I won't ask all my questions. I just have two things I think would be useful to touch on right now. First, I just want to confirm so there's not any confusion from folks in the community. When you're talking about day services, you're not talking about day services at the shelters. So what we've established so far for the South Austin Housing Center is there will be no day services there. So we're not talking about any change to that. I just want to make sure that's clear for the public. Second thing is, I think as you continue to work that out, where there's the possibility for, or where there's the ability for day services, I think we need to be real clear with the community about where that is, and that the city will be taking steps to make sure that we don't inadvertently create the kinds of issues that have happened in the past around the Arch. So people are going to have questions about where day services are available and what's allowed to happen outside them. So I think that kind of clarity is going to be really necessary. And then the other thing I just want to ask is, City Manager, I really appreciated what you said yesterday with regard to the initiative that looks to setting up a way to assess results and accountability for how we work on homeless services. And I would like it to ask you, if you don't mind, to just say a few more about that. I think that's an important piece to this update.
Thank you, Councilmember, for that opening. I outlined a number of initiatives that we'll be working on over the next year to ensure that we are operating as efficiently and as effectively as we can as an organization. And one of those is really around our homeless services contracts. And so as Lori gets on board, our Chief Strategy Officer, she will help us think through both what a homeless advisory council could look like that would establish what our goals are, and then working with a third-party outside contractor really set up that performance framework so we can look at every single contract that we have to make sure that we are achieving what we want out of those contracts. And so this will be a process that happens over time, but it's allowing us to make sure that we are both holding ourselves accountable, because the community is going to be holding us accountable, but we're also holding the service providers that we work with accountable for those results.
Thank you.
Okay. I think at a really high level, this is really good work, and as we move forward, I think that the messaging to the community is pretty clear. We're concerned about two things in this city. We're concerned about people, and we're also concerned about places. The answer to both of those concerns in this case happens to be the same. It's to be able to provide housing and services for people. So that when and if we ever go to someone and say, you can't be here, we have an answer to the question, well, if you don't want me here, where is it that I'm supposed to go? Where am I able to go? And we need to answer that question in this community because we have not answered it yet. But that's really the exchange in our city. That is the real exchange. We don't really solve anything by just moving people around. We solve things by actually being able to provide people homes and the services that go with those. And hopefully we get to a place where we don't have a need for anybody to be sitting, lying, or camping anywhere in the city, because there are good places, certainly camping. I mean, we all sit and lie in the city, but camping, certainly, because there are better and safer places for people to be. And that's where we need to aspire to get to.
Mayor,
Yes.
and I also want to remind that, I've had nonprofit providers already volunteering that want to really take advantage of this program there at South Austin Housing, and not to forget that, we need the private businesses and private citizens to also step up, because we can make this into a very successful program and expand it throughout Austin. But people are going to be watching, seeing how successful we are with this, the beginning of it. And I really want to appreciate the funding that you're putting behind this, because it's very important.
All right, thank you very much.
Heather.
Councilmember Alter?
So I share my colleagues' desire for us to be a model for how we can support those experiencing homelessness. There is a part, though, of this conversation that our community wants to hear about that wasn't addressed this morning, and I just wanted to get a sense of when we will be getting some factual information from the city, which is how are we going to get information about what's happening in practice with the relaxation of the solicitation, the sit-lie, and the camping ordinances. There is a lot of chatter that is out there. And it is easy for every individual to believe that their one point of information is the reality. And I think it would be helpful for us to, whether it's hearing from the chief, I know that a lot of this information is anecdotal, but really to try to know what is going on in practice since the changes have gone into effect, and are there adjustments of some kind, are there resources of particular kind that are related to that, beyond some of these things that we've already envisioned and have in the works that need to come to play, so that we as a community can successfully navigate through this stage in the process of trying to come up with solutions and get folks housed.
Just thanks for flagging that, and we'll continue to think through how best to provide some information. Again, a lot of it is anecdotal. I know the chief's been talking about some of the experiences that he and his officers have had. I've heard some data that the Downtown Alliance is collecting, and we'll see what other data sources might be available that we can make public for your digestion.
And I think if there are, parts of it that need to be clarified, so one of the things, and again, this is anecdotal, so I don't want to state this as fact, but, whether in relaxing the solicitation, there are folks who are bullying folks or it's being experienced as bullying, what is the line that we draw, and at what point are they supposed to call, the police, and how, I don't know that people have clarity on what is it that they can do when they do have a concern. And I think that it would be valuable to have greater clarity for the public who is taking the ordinance changes and interpreting them, but we know what's going on in practice at some level, and how do we take that information and use it to continue to improve how we are moving forward in this policy area to get everyone housed and to address the public health and safety concerns.
Okay, let's move on then to the budget. Thank you, guys.
Well, we make.
By the way,
Oh,
I'm sorry. It looks like the LBJ school and the LBJ library are going to house a a community town hall at the end of the month on August 29th, which should be after you've been able to give us, manager, some of your thoughts and comments on those first section, with an eye to talking about what it is that we should be doing. But I appreciate the LBJ Library Foundation and the LBJ School in offering to do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, for for letting people know about that. I mean, I think, and thank you, Councilmember Alter, for mentioning the need for clarity. There's 2 opportunities so far, and perhaps there'll be others, but there are 2 opportunities so far for the public to have a conversation, to listen and to share their thoughts and concerns about next steps. And the one is on August 21st in the morning that DAA is hosting, and the other one is in the evening on August 29th at the LBJ School and the LBJ School Library are hosting. So I think it's really important for us to have these opportunities to talk to and listen to the community and provide some clarity to the community on what's in front of us to consider.
And I know that some of the council members, you, me, and some others, have been invited to participate in at least those 2. So it's an opportunity for the public to be able to ask questions directly of council members and for us to be able to respond.